Part 1, the wedding that wasn't everyone came for a celebration. No one expected a scandal. The wedding hall was glowing. Crystals sparkled like stars above, and fresh flowers covered every corner. Guests in designer clothes smiled, laughed, and whispered as they waited for the bride and groom. It was supposed to be a day of joy. But deep down, something felt wrong. Rachel stood alone in the dressing room, her hands shaking slightly. She stared at her reflection. The white dress fit perfectly, the veil soft as clouds. Her lips were red, her eyes done beautifully. She looked like a bride in a dream. But her heart was pounding, loud and heavy. Where was Ryan? He wasn't answering his phone. The best man had no clue where he went. The groom had simply vanished. Rachel sat down slowly, her heart sinking. Miss Monroe, the wedding planner knocked gently, voice soft. We're ready to begin. Rachel swallowed hard. Give me 5 more minutes. Outside, her father, Mr. Monroe, stood quietly by the aisle. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd. He had built empires, won over enemies, and faced death in boardrooms. But today, he felt powerless. All he could do was wait and hope his daughter wouldn't be humiliated. But it was too late for that. A sudden wave of whispers passed through the hall. People turned their heads. Then someone screamed. Everyone looked toward the grand doors, where a woman in a blood-stained dress was being carried inside by the groom. Ryan Sullivan. He was breathless, his shirt ripped, his suit jacket missing. And in his arms, barely conscious, was Emily Young, his ex-girlfriend. Gasps filled the room. Rachel stood frozen at the top of the stairs, watching the man she was about to marry place another woman gently on a couch. She tried to jump off a bridge, Ryan explained. I had to save her. The words echoed like thunder. Rachel didn't cry. She didn't faint. She only looked at him, eyes full of something deeper than pain, clarity. The wedding was over before it began. 2 weeks later the press had a field day. Runaway groom saves ex at his own wedding. Sullivan family embarrassed in public. Rachel Monroe abandoned in front of hundreds. Rachel stayed quiet. She didn't speak to the press, didn't post online, didn't answer calls. She had disappeared. But Ryan? He couldn't escape. Everywhere he went, people looked at him with judgment. Even his own mother couldn't hide her disappointment. How could you humiliate her like that? She whispered. Rachel was good to you. But Ryan only repeated the same words, I had to save Emily. Months before the wedding, back when things looked perfect, Rachel and Ryan had seemed like the dream couple. They were both smart, good-looking, and came from powerful families. It had started years ago in high school, Rachel, the quiet girl with sad eyes, and Ryan, the popular boy everyone loved. One day, someone had bullied her. Ryan had stepped in. Just once. Just one time. But she remembered it forever. Later, when the Sullivan group faced financial trouble, Rachel had approached Ryan's parents with a marriage proposal. She had saved them, with her money and her heart. She believed it was love. Mr. Monroe hadn't pushed her. If you love him, he said, then I trust you. And Rachel had smiled. He's changed, Dad. He loves me. But Mr. Monroe had seen more than she knew. He had seen her cry quietly at night while Ryan was out drinking, cheating, partying like nothing mattered. She had picked up his dry cleaning, answered his calls, brought fresh clothes to hotel rooms. She never complained. She believed in him. And then, on the day that was supposed to prove he loved her too, he vanished. Now Ryan sat in the dark villa, alone. The place where they were supposed to start a life together felt like a grave. He stared at the couch Rachel used to lie on. He could almost see her there, smiling, humming, calling his name. He grabbed a bottle of wine, then another. His pride was shattered, his name dragged through mud. But the worst part? Rachel was gone. Not just from the house. Not just from the city. She had vanished from his world completely. Back at the Monroe residence, Mr. Monroe stood in his private office, face like stone. Ryan had come to speak with him. He looked thinner, paler, like a ghost of the confident man he once was. "I want to return the shares Rachel gave me," Ryan said. Mr. Monroe narrowed his eyes. "Return them? She doesn't need to be tied to me anymore." Mr. Monroe chuckled coldly. "Ryan, you fool. Rachel already owns more of the Sullivan Group than you do. She's the largest shareholder. What exactly are you planning to give her?" Ryan said nothing. Mr. Monroe leaned closer. "Do you know how many nights she cried for you? Do you know how many times she forgave you, believing you would change? And what did you do?" Silence. "You left her. Publicly. At her wedding. For another woman." Ryan clenched his fists, shame flooding his chest. I didn't mean to, but you did." Mr. Monroe's voice was like ice. "And now, Rachel is no longer yours to hurt." Far away, Rachel stood at the balcony of a tall building. The sea breeze brushed her hair. The city below buzzed with life. She had built something new, on her own. With her own hands, her own mind, her own heart. No one here knew her past. They knew only her strength, her success. And her new fiancé. He stood behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Cold?" he asked. She smiled. "No. Just thinking." "About him?" Rachel didn't answer. Because the truth was, sometimes, late at night, she did think of Ryan. Not because she missed him. But because she had loved him once, deeply. And that love had shaped her, carved scars into her, made her stronger. But it was over now. Wasn't it? Back in the city, Ryan searched everywhere. No one knew where Rachel had gone. She had left no trail. Her number was disconnected, her social media gone. The only connection left was the company. So he focused on work. Day and night. He grew more mature, more composed. His mother watched him and thought, maybe the pain changed him. Maybe he finally grew up. But Ryan knew the truth. He worked because it was the only way he still felt close to her. Rachel still owned shares. If the company did well, maybe, just maybe, she'd still think of him too. He couldn't let go. He wouldn't. Half a year later, finally, a lead. Rachel had invested in a startup overseas, a company that was growing fast. Ryan flew 16 hours without sleep, straight to the headquarters. He arrived, heart racing, palms sweating. And then, like fate, she walked out the front doors. Rachel. Still beautiful. Still graceful. He watched her from a distance, straightening his coat, taking a deep breath. "Rachel," he whispered. She turned. Smiled. And ran, straight into another man's arms. Part 2. The man who came too late. Ryan stood frozen. Rachel hadn't seen him yet. She was smiling, really smiling, as she hugged the tall man beside her. The man's hand rested gently on her back, and he leaned in close to whisper something in her ear. She laughed. It was a sound Ryan hadn't heard in a long time. Not during the last few months of their relationship. Not at their wedding. Not even in their happiest memories. This laughter was free. Light. Peaceful. It didn't belong to the Rachel he remembered. His chest tightened as he watched her walk away with the stranger, their hands gently brushing. She didn't even glance in Ryan's direction. "She's happy, without me." Later that night, Rachel sat at her apartment window, sipping tea. The man from earlier, Alex, had gone home. He was kind, calm, always patient. He never pressured her, never asked too many questions. And that's what she liked most about him. She was rebuilding her life slowly, brick by brick. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She frowned. Then a message popped up. "I saw you today." I flew 16 hours just to see you. Please, let me talk to you. Ryan, her fingers paused over the keyboard. Her heart didn't jump. It didn't ache. It just paused. She turned off her phone and went to sleep. Back in the hotel, Ryan couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the scene in his head, Rachel's smile, the way she leaned into that man's shoulder, the way she didn't even notice Ryan standing across the street. She had really moved on. He hadn't expected her to still love him. Not after what he did. But a small part of him hoped she'd still care. She was mine, he thought bitterly. And I let her go. The weight of his past mistakes sat heavily on his shoulders. Not just the wedding. But everything before that. The nights he came home drunk. The way he treated her like a tool instead of a person. The way he forgot her birthday once and didn't even apologize. He hadn't loved her properly. He only realized it when it was too late. Flashback, 1 year earlier, Rachel had waited at the restaurant for over 2 hours. The candles had burned halfway down. The food was cold. Still, she waited. Finally, Ryan walked in. No apology, no explanation. Just a tired sigh. Sorry. Got caught up with Emily. Rachel's smile faded. Emily. Again. He didn't notice the hurt in her eyes. He never did. Present-day Ryan walked through the city, unsure of what to do next. The new Rachel wasn't someone he could win back with flowers or apologies. She was stronger now. Smarter. Independent. But he needed closure. He needed to say what he never said before. He opened his laptop and started typing an email. Then deleted it. Too cold. He tried calling again. Straight to voicemail. He wrote a letter. Handwritten. Long, honest. Then ripped it up. Nothing felt right. In the end, he just waited. Meanwhile, Alex noticed Rachel was quieter than usual. You okay? He asked gently. She nodded. Yeah. Just tired. He didn't push. He never did. That's what made her feel safe around him. But deep down, a part of her was unsettled. Seeing Ryan again, even from a distance, had stirred memories she thought were buried. She didn't hate him anymore. But she couldn't forget what he did. Still, questions floated in her mind. Why was he here? What did he want? 3 days later, Ryan waited outside her office building again, just hoping to catch a glimpse. He had booked a return flight but never used it. His eyes were tired, his suit wrinkled. And then, finally, Rachel stepped out alone. Their eyes met. She didn't smile. Didn't run. But she didn't walk away either. Can we talk? Ryan asked, his voice soft, almost broken. She paused. Then nodded. At a nearby cafe it was quiet. Small. No one paid them any attention. Rachel stirred her tea. Ryan didn't touch his drink. He spoke first. You look different. I am, she said. He nodded. I know I don't deserve your time. But I needed to see you. To say sorry. She looked at him. For which part? Ryan lowered his eyes. All of it. The lies. The neglect. The wedding. Emily, Rachel's hands tightened around her cup. You didn't just humiliate me, she said. You broke me. And then you left me standing alone while the world watched. I know, he whispered. I hated myself for it. I still do. She stared out the window. You loved her more than me. I thought I did, he said. But that day, when I saw her almost fall, something in me snapped. I didn't think. I just ran. And me? I failed you, he said. Completely. But not because I didn't love you. I just didn't know how. Rachel was silent. Then she asked, "Why now?" Ryan looked at her, pain in his eyes. "Because you were the only person who ever believed in me. And I didn't realize what that meant until you were gone." She let out a small laugh, cold and sad. "You should have realized before you destroyed me." Ryan nodded. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. Or come back. I just wanted to say it. In person." She stood up. "Thank you for saying it. But I don't need it anymore." As she walked away, he stood there, watching. His heart shattered quietly all over again. Later that night Rachel stood at the balcony again, the city lights glowing beneath her. The air was cold, but she didn't shiver. Alex walked up behind her. "You saw him, didn't you?" She nodded. "Do you want to talk about it?" "No," she said. "Because there's nothing left to say." Alex didn't ask more. He just held her hand. Meanwhile, in the dark hotel room Ryan opened his suitcase. The letter he wrote but never sent was still there. He unfolded it. "Read it once more. Rachel, I was a coward. I loved you the wrong way. I broke you when all you did was try to heal me. I see you now. Really see you. You're strong. Beautiful. Brave. I don't want to win you back. I just want to be the kind of man you deserved from the beginning. Even if we never speak again, I'll spend the rest of my life becoming better. Because of you." Ryan he folded the letter again. And burned it. Part 3, Old Wounds, New Questions. 1 week later Rachel thought it was over. She had faced him. Listened. Walked away. And that should have been the end of it. But something about Ryan's face, his broken voice, and the weight behind his words, kept echoing in her mind. She didn't want to go back to that pain. She'd finally found peace, at least, she thought she had. So why did she feel unsettled now? Alex had noticed her silence growing again. At dinner, she barely touched her food. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "You're not okay," Alex said softly one evening. Rachel sighed. "I don't know what I am." Meanwhile Ryan didn't leave the city. He kept telling himself he would. That his goodbye was enough. But deep down, he still hoped, just a little, that Rachel would call. Or message. Or look for him. Instead, every day felt heavier. He couldn't go back to the old life. Emily had left the country after the wedding scandal, and the investors who once praised him now turned cold. His company was barely holding on. He had everything, and now he had nothing. But the silence from Rachel hurt the most. Then, one day, his phone finally buzzed. A message from Rachel. What exactly happened with Emily that day? Their second meeting they sat at a park bench this time. No coffee, no background music. Just the sound of children playing and the wind brushing through leaves. Rachel didn't smile. Her eyes were sharp. "You left me for her. So tell me what changed." Ryan took a deep breath. "She called me the night before the wedding. Said she was in trouble. That someone had threatened her. I thought it was a trick, but I panicked. I still felt like I owed her." Rachel said nothing. "I went to see her. She cried, begged me to stay. Said she was afraid of something big. That someone was targeting her because of my success." Rachel frowned. "Did you believe her?" "I wasn't sure. But I stayed with her. I couldn't sleep. And the next morning, when I got to the wedding, you ran to her again," Rachel finished coldly. Ryan looked ashamed. She faked fainting. "I knew it. I could see the lie in her eyes. But I still ran." Rachel's voice was sharp. "So you humiliated me in front of everyone, again, because you weren't sure?" "I was scared," Ryan admitted. "Not of losing her, but of losing myself. I thought she needed saving. But I was the one drowning." Later Rachel walked home alone after their talk, her thoughts spinning. She had always believed she was the victim. That Ryan simply chose Emily because he loved her more. But now, this truth added new layers. It didn't change the betrayal. But it made her wonder, was Ryan ever really in control of his own life? Or was he just pulled in by guilt and fear? She didn't know if she should feel pity, or just more pain. Flashback, months before the wedding Rachel had found messages on Ryan's phone. Nothing romantic. Just long, emotional texts from Emily. "You don't know how much I've suffered," one read. "If I disappear, just know I never stopped loving you." When Rachel asked Ryan about it, he said, "She's just struggling. I'll handle it." But he never did. Rachel had known, deep inside, that Emily was a storm waiting to strike. But she loved Ryan too much to walk away. Now she wondered if she should have left long before the wedding. Present-day Rachel sat with Alex that night, trying to focus on their movie night. He handed her popcorn and tried making jokes, but she wasn't laughing. He finally paused the movie. "Are you thinking about him again?" She nodded slowly. "He told me the truth." Alex waited. He didn't choose her because he loved her. He chose her because he was scared. Alex gave a small nod. "So, does that change anything?" Rachel didn't answer right away. "I don't know," she whispered. "I feel like I've been angry at a version of him that didn't fully exist." Meanwhile Ryan went back to his hotel and opened an old notebook, Rachel's gift from years ago. On the front, she had written, "For your dreams. Don't let fear ruin them." He flipped through the pages, most of them blank. But near the back, a few notes from his startup plans were scribbled. Rachel had written encouraging messages beside them in blue ink. Back then, she was his biggest fan. His support. His home. He wiped his face with both hands. "I didn't just lose her," he whispered to himself. "I destroyed the only part of me that ever mattered." A surprise twist: the next morning, Rachel got an anonymous email. It had only one sentence: "Ask Emily what really happened the night before your wedding." Attached was a photo. Emily in a restaurant. Sitting across from a man Rachel didn't recognize, but something about him felt familiar. Her stomach dropped. She forwarded the photo to Alex. "Can you find out who this man is?" Alex was surprised, but nodded. "I'll try." "Something about this doesn't feel right," Rachel said. A new suspicion. Over the next few days, Rachel started digging. She visited places Emily used to frequent. Spoke to a few people who still remembered the wedding drama. Then she found it, a waitress from the hotel where Emily stayed the night before the wedding. She wasn't crying, the waitress said. She was celebrating. Some man had come to visit. Tall, well-dressed. They laughed a lot. Rachel's blood ran cold. Ryan had been tricked. Not just emotionally manipulated, but maybe set up. Rachel's decision: she called Ryan. "Meet me at the same cafe. We need to talk." When they met, her expression was serious. "I think you were used," she said. Ryan blinked. "What do you mean?" "I think Emily wanted to ruin the wedding. On purpose." She showed him the photo. Ryan's face turned pale. "I know that man," he said slowly. "He used to work for one of my rivals. The guy who wanted my startup to fail." Rachel leaned forward. "I think this goes deeper than you thought." Ryan looked shaken. "I thought I was the villain in your story," he said quietly. "But what if I was just a pawn?" Part 4, Shadows of the Past. The aftermath of the revelation. Ryan sat across from Rachel, his face pale as he stared at the photograph. His hand shook slightly as he reached for his coffee, but the warm mug didn't seem to offer any comfort. "That man," Ryan said, his voice distant, "he was part of the group that tried to sabotage my business when I first started." Rachel nodded. "And Emily, she was involved in this from the beginning." Ryan's mind raced. He felt betrayed again, this time by Emily, who had once seemed so innocent and scared. But now, seeing the connections, everything started to click. Emily's behavior, her manipulation, the way she had acted as if she were helpless, it had all been a carefully planned act. Do you think she was working with him the entire time? Rachel asked, breaking him from his thoughts. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear in his expression. I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Rachel leaned back in her chair, staring at him intently. You need to confront her. Ryan shook his head, the pain in his eyes reflecting the turmoil inside. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face her again. The search for truth over the next few days, Rachel helped Ryan connect the dots. They contacted old colleagues of Emily's and started tracing her steps. They discovered that Emily had been in close contact with people from Ryan's business rival, even before their wedding. It became clear that she had been more than just a troubled ex-lover. Why didn't I see this before? Ryan muttered one night as he sat at his desk, surrounded by papers and notes. I was so focused on the past, on trying to fix things, that I never saw what was right in front of me. Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder, offering comfort. It's not your fault. She played you. Ryan looked at her, his expression softening. I don't know what to do anymore, Rachel. I've lost everything. I've lost you. She gave him a small, understanding smile. You haven't lost me. Not yet. The confrontation. Ryan decided it was time to face Emily. He couldn't live in the dark any longer. The lies, the manipulation, he needed closure. With Rachel by his side, he went to Emily's apartment. His heart pounded in his chest, each step toward the door feeling heavier than the last. When Emily opened the door, her eyes widened in surprise. Ryan? What are you doing here? I need to talk to you, Ryan said, his voice firm but strained. Emily looked over her shoulder nervously before stepping aside to let them in. Rachel stayed close behind him, her presence a silent reminder of the strength she had given him. What's this about? Emily asked, her voice wary. Ryan didn't waste any time. You've been lying to me, Emily. You never loved me. You were using me to destroy everything I've worked for. Emily's face remained neutral, but her eyes flickered with something that might have been guilt. I didn't want to hurt you, Ryan. But you did, he shot back. And you don't even regret it. Rachel stepped forward. We know you were working with my ex-husband's company to bring Ryan down. You manipulated him. All of this was just a game to you. Emily's face faltered. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Then, with a sharp breath, she sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I didn't know how to get out of it, she whispered. They threatened me. They said they would ruin me if I didn't do what they asked. Rachel's expression softened. But you chose to go along with it. You chose to betray Ryan. Emily's shoulders trembled as she looked up at them, her eyes filled with tears. I never wanted to hurt him. But they made me feel like I had no choice. And by the time I realized how deep I was in, it was too late. Ryan stared at her, his heart torn. There was a part of him that wanted to believe her, to find some way to justify her actions. But another part of him, the part that had been betrayed too many times, couldn't forgive her. You destroyed everything, Emily. And I was too blind to see it. The unexpected twist as the conversation wore on, Ryan and Rachel's suspicion grew. The story Emily told didn't quite add up. If she had truly been so manipulated, why did she continue to play along for so long? Why not reach out for help? Then, something Emily said struck a chord with Rachel. I wasn't the only one involved, Emily said softly. You don't know the half of it. There were bigger forces at play here. The real mastermind behind all of this isn't even in this country anymore. But if you really want to know what happened, you have to dig deeper. It's not just me. It's about a network. A scheme that goes much further than you can imagine. Ryan looked at Rachel. Her face mirrored his own confusion. I don't understand, Ryan said. Emily shook her head. I can't tell you any more. I've already said too much. But the truth, the real truth, is darker than you think. Ryan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Who's behind this? Emily's gaze shifted nervously. I can't say. They'll come for me if I do. Rachel stepped forward. Tell us everything, Emily. You owe it to Ryan, and to yourself. But Emily remained silent, tears streaming down her face as she clutched her arms tightly. She looked as if she wanted to say more, but she was too afraid. Finally, she stood up shakily. I can't. I just can't. Ryan stepped toward her, his voice low. You've already taken everything from me. Don't take my chance for redemption, too. Emily backed away, her eyes wide with fear. Please, Ryan. I've told you all I can. If you dig any deeper, you'll regret it. The decision. Ryan and Rachel left Emily's apartment that day with more questions than answers. What had she meant about a larger conspiracy? Who was the real mastermind? And why had Emily been so terrified? Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were getting closer to something much bigger than they'd anticipated. There was more to this story. And she was determined to uncover it. You think she's telling the truth? Ryan asked as they walked back to their car. I don't know, Rachel admitted. But I do know one thing, we can't let this go. There's someone out there pulling the strings. Ryan nodded, his jaw set with determination. Then let's find them. For good. Part 5, The Final Confrontation. The search for the mastermind. Ryan and Rachel spent the next few days digging deeper into Emily's cryptic words. They were driven by the nagging feeling that there was someone, behind it all. Someone who had orchestrated everything from the beginning. Do you think it's really that serious? Rachel asked one evening as she looked over the latest pile of documents they had gathered. Ryan stared at the stack of papers on the table. I don't know. But there's only one way to find out. We go to the source. The source was Emily's ex-colleague, the one person who might know more about what had been happening behind the scenes. The man was connected to the Sullivan Group's old rival company, and there was a trail of evidence that suggested he might know more than he was letting on. Ryan couldn't help but think about everything he'd lost, Rachel, his company, his trust in the people closest to him. It was all slipping away, piece by piece, and it seemed that only the truth could bring him any sort of redemption. I think we should do this, Rachel said, her voice firm. We can't keep chasing shadows. We need answers. Ryan looked at her, his eyes full of gratitude. Despite everything, despite the heartbreak and betrayal, she was still by his side. She had stood by him when no one else would. The thought made him feel stronger, more determined. The meeting. They arrived at the hotel lobby where they had arranged to meet the source, a man named Matthew. He had been an insider in the rival company and had worked closely with Emily. Ryan's heart raced as they sat in the dimly lit room, waiting for him to arrive. When Matthew finally walked in, he looked just as nervous as they felt. He glanced around before sitting across from them. Mr. Sullivan, Miss Monroe, he greeted them cautiously. I'm sorry this had to be in secret, but I'm not sure who I can trust anymore. Ryan nodded, leaning forward. We're here for the truth, Matthew. We know there's more going on than you've told us. We need you to tell us everything. Matthew hesitated for a long moment. I don't want to get involved in any more of this. It's dangerous. You don't know who you're dealing with. Rachel's gaze was intense. We need to know who's behind all of this. Emily, she said. Someone else was pulling the strings. Who is it, Matthew? Matthew's eyes darted to the door, then back to them. It's not just one person. It's a network, a group of powerful people who've been using Emily and others to manipulate things behind the scenes. It's not just about business. It's about control. Ryan clenched his fists, his frustration building. Who's at the top of this? Matthew looked around again, his voice dropping to a whisper. I can't say for sure, but I know the name. The person at the top, it's someone in your family, Ryan. Ryan froze. His heart skipped a beat. What? No. That's not possible. Matthew nodded slowly, his voice low. I'm afraid so. The person behind it all is someone you've trusted for years. Someone who has always had control, and has been pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Rachel reached out and placed a hand on Ryan's arm, steadying him. Who, Matthew? Who are we talking about? He swallowed hard. It's your father, Ryan. The one you've always looked up to. He's been using his influence to destroy you, to take back what he lost. Ryan's mind went blank. His father? The man who had raised him, the one who had taught him everything he knew about business? It couldn't be true. But the evidence was starting to line up in a way that was impossible to ignore. Why? Ryan whispered. Why would he do that? Matthew sighed. It's about power, Ryan. Your father has always wanted more. He was losing his grip on the Sullivan Group, and he knew you were too strong a threat. So, he orchestrated everything, your marriage to Emily, the way she manipulated you, everything. He thought if he could tear you apart emotionally, you'd give up everything. He's been trying to destroy you from the inside. Ryan sat back in his chair, stunned. No. This can't be real. It's the truth, Matthew said, his voice heavy with regret. And I'm sorry I didn't warn you sooner. But I didn't know who to trust. You have to be careful now. You have to protect yourself, and you have to take him down. The confrontation with his father Ryan left the meeting with a sense of numbness creeping over him. His father, the man he had respected and admired all his life, had been the mastermind behind all of this. He had betrayed him in the worst way possible. Rachel drove him to the family estate. The mansion loomed ahead, its cold stone walls a silent reminder of everything Ryan had once hoped for. Everything had changed now. The lies, the betrayal, it was all so much darker than he had ever imagined. They walked inside, and Ryan didn't hesitate. He found his father in his study, sitting behind his massive desk, just as he always had. But this time, Ryan saw his father in a new light. The man who had always seemed so invincible was nothing more than a puppet master, pulling the strings of everyone around him. Dad, Ryan said, his voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. I know the truth. His father looked up slowly, his expression unreadable. What truth are you talking about, son? About you, Ryan said, his voice tight. You've been behind all of it. You've been trying to destroy me. His father's face remained calm, but his eyes flickered with something, guilt? Or maybe it was just anger. You've always been too blind to see the truth, Ryan. I did what I had to do. Ryan shook his head. You betrayed me, Dad. And you betrayed Rachel. You tore apart everything I worked for. His father stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You don't understand, Ryan. I did it because I had no choice. You were getting too powerful. You were becoming a threat to everything I built. You're a monster, Ryan spat. You've destroyed my life. You've ruined everything. His father's expression softened for a moment, but it was gone just as quickly. I didn't want to do this. But you forced my hand. Ryan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. No. You made the choice. And now you have to live with it. The final goodbye. Ryan didn't waste any more time. With Rachel by his side, he walked away from the family estate for the last time. Everything he had once known was gone. His father's betrayal had shattered his trust, but it had also given him the strength to move on. As they drove away, Ryan looked at Rachel, his heart heavy. I don't know what comes next, he said quietly. Rachel smiled, her hand reaching for his. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Ryan nodded, feeling a sense of peace that he hadn't felt in a long time. He had lost everything, but in doing so, he had gained something more important: freedom. Freedom from the past, freedom from the lies, and freedom to love again. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan felt the weight on his shoulders lift. Epilogue. New beginnings. Months later, the Sullivan Group was thriving once more, but this time, Ryan was at the helm, free from the toxic influence of his father. Rachel had stood by him through every battle, and together, they had rebuilt their lives. Ryan had learned to forgive, not for the sake of his father, but for himself. He had let go of the past and embraced the future with hope. And as he looked at Rachel, the woman who had helped him heal, he knew that no matter what had happened before, their love was the one thing that would never fade.